Welcome back to Pat Man Garage. We are finally done with the Mach 1 Mustang, and that means it's time to work on Fiddy again. I'm actually really happy to be working on her. I've got I don't want to call it a problem because I wasn't really sure when I built it exactly how I wanted to do it. But we got a long-standing coyote swap issue we're going to resolve today. And basically, I'm running the Coyote level sending unit in the modified 2003 fuel tank, and didn't really have a concept of how to make that work properly, so I bent it where it reads low more than it should. So we're going to drop the tank out, which should be pretty quick, other than lifting the truck up to get the tank out. But we're going to drop the tank out and see if we can make some more sense of it and basically make it operate as factory as possible. So we're going to jump into it. So before I get started, before I get started lifting the truck up, I need to scoot the truck this way just a little bit to make enough room on the backside to work, and then which will be for a future thing. But I also need to pull down at least the mountain bike because I only have about 5 inches of clearance, and I'm going to need more than that to get under the truck. Certainly not a hard job doing, it's not easy, but I'm tall enough I can do that. I'm glad I don't have to do that every day. It certainly doesn't encourage me to ride the mountain bike as much as I should be, but whatever. Anyways, we're going to get this thing pulled towards me a little bit, and then we'll get it lifted up. Well, I might not look it, but I got the first round of lifting on the back and one of the front corners done, and I am like dangerously close to the bicycle on the front. So we're going to go ahead and pull this one down too, and then we'll resume lifting. We still got plenty of room on the cab, so I just really don't want to tear up the bed cover if I don't have to. Alright, well, I got the truck up high enough. I still got plenty of room above it, so that's good. I was going to show y'all under the truck. I had mentioned that I had modified the gas tank, and I'm sure some of y'all probably haven't even seen that, so if you're new to the channel. So this is my factory steel tank, and I chopped off the back, about 4 inches or so of it, and that allowed me to have enough room to install my battery box in the floor of the bed, and it fits in there real nicely. And by doing that, I was able to move the battery out of the engine bay. Here's another angle here. You can see the battery box there, and you can see how much I chopped off. Well, you can see the aftermath, I guess. So the tank will come out just like factory. We'll take off the two straps here, and it should come out relatively easy. Well, I managed to wrangle the tank out, and we'll drag it all the way out from under the truck now, and we'll take a look at the sending units. Well, I thought I did a pretty good job of emptying this tank out beforehand, but it still feels pretty heavy. But we'll pop the top of the tank off and disassemble the sending unit so we can get it out, because it's a little bit larger than the opening going into the tank, and then we'll get a game plan going forward from there. All right, so top hat's off, and this is what I was talking about. It's too big to get through the opening. So the other thing I wanted to do, now that I got the sending unit out, the other thing I wanted to do was take a look in the tank. So when I cut off the back and I welded it, I put a sealer in the tank, and I kind of want to see how the tank is holding up internally. So you can see there's kind of some runoff of wrinkly stuff that's flaking. Obviously not the best look there. The stuff that was on the plastic in the sump is really coming off. So I want to do my best to get that out of there as much as possible. The stuff that's on the steel looks okay for the most part. So we'll get this cleaned up as best we can, just so we don't have any more loose chunks flying around. Well, I figured out my first flaw. I did also get quite a bit of material out of the tank too, but the sending unit sweeps on the front side, which is where I put the adapter bracket to make it work, and then I literally just now realized that the shape of the tank doesn't allow for this to come up all the way. So we either need to shorten the arm further inboard to get around this hump section, or we need to reposition the sending unit to the back somehow. Okay, here's a rough cardboard mock-up of the bracket I need to build to flip this 180 degrees so it'll be out of the way. We may still have to do some more tweaks on the arm to get it bent around. I may have to flip the float to inboard side, because right now we're kind of if it's sitting in the tank like this, we might be rubbing on that outside wall. So that's the rough idea. I'm going to get it transferred over into some sort of metal, start cutting and bending, and then we'll see what we look like after that. So here's my cardboard template, rough idea of what I want to do. And I dug around in the scrap bucket and I found a Honeywell, some sort of cover for some sort of electrical or AC or something. And it is almost exactly the same size I need. So that's pretty cool. So my difference in height will actually allow me to bend these slightly out at a 45 or 90, excuse me, bend them out just enough to give me the feet to bolt onto my bracket on the actual tank side. So I might have just saved a ton of work. We'll get this chopped up and see how this fits. There's the first step, bending the feet off, and then we should be able to get those to line up pretty nicely there. And then we'll just have to do some trimming over here, top and bottom, and then we'll have to put our self-tapping screws back through the face of this into the body of the conversion bracket. But I'm pleased with how well that how well that fits, considering that's totally not what that was intended for. But sometimes you get lucky on something like that. Alright, I did quite a bit of cutting and drilling, and I think I'm ready to put the sensor on the bracket. So I'm going to have to bolt it to the bracket first before I install it on the carrier. I think I've got enough swing room to articulate the arm. And I've test fit the bracket by itself, empty, and it doesn't look like it's going to hit anything on the pump or the carrier. So we'll get these self-tappers put in the pre-drilled pilot holes on the bracket face and see how this goes. Alright, I did some more tweaking on my arm, and I think I've got it where I'm happy with it. So I want it to read a little I want it to show empty sooner than it actually is, just because of how the tank is set up.
Since the factory Coyote had a wet sump and this is technically a dry sump, I'm not going to get into the differences there, but basically I wanted to show empty a little bit sooner. So I've got it where the gauge is all the way down, and I still got a little bit of gap, which is about what I want. And then if I come up with it, it is right at the top of the tank. So, and that's actually hitting the maximum on the sending unit. So I'm really happy with the way this is setting in here. Only thing else I need to do is make sure that this on the low side clears internally where that plastic sump is. So that's going to be my final step, and then we'll do a full install on it. Well, my initial test fit did not go very well. I already popped the sending unit back off of it, but I went to install it in the tank and immediately hit the bracket. So I'm going to have to cut quite a bit of the width off of the bracket this direction to be able to get this to drop in one piece. That's a little unfortunate, but it is what it is. Alright, so I got my carrier fit after trimming the bracket quite a bit, and still unfortunately had to install the carrier and then put the sending unit leveler arm on, but not that big of a deal in the grand scheme of things. So we're going to try to maybe even use you guys as our eyeballs here, but we're going to see if we can't do a little test fit here and make sure that level gauge isn't going to hit anything. Looks like we might get caught up on the filler neck, so I have to pull it back apart. We'll do a little bit of bending the other direction. In a perfect world, I'd be much fancier and I'd like 3D print the whole inside of the tank like some of the YouTubers do. Just that ain't me. I hope we got it. I think we got it figured out, but I won't know for sure until I fill it up, unfortunately. So we'll keep our fingers crossed that we did all this work for something productive. I mean, having the bracket flipped around the right direction definitely feels a lot better. But like I said, we just don't really know for sure because I can't effectively articulate that sensor with the hat installed. So we'll see how it goes. Well, after further contemplation, I decided to pull off the rollover valve here and figured that might give me an access to see what's going on inside the tank. Okay, so there's the sending unit. Now I don't have a great way to do this on camera and articulate it, but just looking at it initially, it looks pretty good. So I'm going to pull the camera out and run it by hand and see what we look like. Well, it just barely clears that the bucket part of that sump, so we're in good shape there. It actually is farther away from the filler neck than I thought it was, so I did pretty good with my most recent modification of bending it. So we're in good shape. We should be pretty confident putting this thing all the way back together and ready to hit the roads again. Alright, well, I got the tank in there. It's not fun doing that by yourself, wrestling with 2 4 jacks on the ground, but it's in there. So I'm gonna turn the power back onto the truck after I clean up the tools a little bit, but we'll turn the power back on the truck, see where the level gauge is at, because it was showing like empty before. So if we did our job correctly, it should actually show a little bit more fuel than it had, and we'll see what that looks like. And I am genuinely glad that I got all of this out of my tank. My goodness, there's so much epoxy. Best I can tell, that epoxy didn't adhere to the plastic, the actual sump in the bottom of the tank. So I think that's where all this epoxy came from. There's a little bit here and there, but almost all the plastic is completely exposed again. So I couldn't really avoid it, so I'm glad I caught it when I did before it became a bigger issue. So Yeah, crazy.
I guess it's probably technically also a good idea to make sure we don't have any fuel leaks, since we did have that fuel supply line off of the top of the tank, but I felt it clip back on, so we should be fine, but it certainly would be a good test to do before we set the truck all the way back down. So we are still showing low fuel level, but at the moment the tank's actually leaning downhill too, so certainly isn't helping that situation either. Well, I was putting a little bit of gas in it at a time to check on it, and we're back at, I stopped at 4 gallons and gauge didn't change, and then I stopped at 7 gallons and gauge didn't change, and then now I'm at full, or almost full with, I put 14.5 gallons in it. So that's probably about as full as it's going to read, which is okay with me. That's much better than we've ever had before. That also means that the gauge will show empty at approximately a third of a tank left. So overall, really happy with that effort today. And now she's got E85 in the tank again. So let's go party. Okay, we're on the way back to the house. Let's do a little about 20 roll, 25 roll, something like that. See how this goes. Having E85, that was fun. So that's all we're gonna do today. She's had enough fun. We get her put away before we get in trouble.